the Planning Commission of the City of Danbury will hold public hearings commencing at 7:30 p.m. on April 27, 2011 in the City Council Chambers at City Hall 155 Deerfield Avenue to consider the following matter. City of Danbury, Union Savings Bank, Connecticut Institute of Communities, Inc. Application for special exception, 120 Main Street, to permit 1, garden apartments, 2, a use or combination of uses, which will generate...
Yes, and Mr. Yes, you can waive the reading of the law.
Okay. Accommodation of uses which will generate over 500 visual trips per day, and 3, shared parking in the CBD zone, Main Street and Downton Street. Without objection, I will waive the reading of the lot numbers. Special exception 713.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
To the parcel and the benefit that it inures not only to the property owners and to the businesses that they will be and services that they will be providing on site, but as you said, to neighborhood areas as well, including those owned by St. Peter Parish. And with that, Mr. Malone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, thank you very much. Jim Maloney, as Mr. Iroquois said, I am the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Connecticut Institute for Communities, and I also am a resident and taxpayer of the City of Danbury. Again, also let me start by saying thank you. We know that this is a special meeting of the Commission, and we know you made a special effort to be here this evening and make this all possible, and we're grateful for you taking your time from your families and your obligations to be here tonight. Thank you very much. What I'd like to do is start by explaining who we are. What is the Connecticut Institute for Communities, and what are these buildings going to be used for? The Connecticut Institute for Communities is a 501c3, which means it's a tax-exempt organization. It is a non-stock corporation of the state of Connecticut. And it is what is referred to as a community development corporation. Pretty well known in the literature. Community development corporations are nonprofit organizations that both offer a range of services to the community and do physical development. So they do both human services and physical development. This project that's before you tonight is exactly what a community development corporation does. Currently, the Connecticut Institute for Communities runs a Head Start program, an early Head Start program, a school readiness program, which we do in cooperation with St. Peter's Church. Currently, we have 2 classrooms at St. Peter's School downtown, so we have a long-standing relationship with St. Peter's, and we are grateful for that relationship. We also run a teen center. We run a financial advisory program for senior citizens, and we sponsor a federally qualified health center. Our administrative offices are at 7 Old Sherman Turnpike, which is out by exit 8, across the street from what I guess was Growier's, is now Scholastic. We have about 10,000 square feet there, and that's going to move downtown with this proposal, and I'll explain what that means in just a second. And we currently have the health center in about 7,000 square feet at 57 North Street. Okay? So that's what a community development corporation does. That's what CIVIC, Connecticut Institute for Communities, does. What is a community health center? The community health center is a doctor's office. That's really all it is a doctor's office. But it is a doctor's office with 2 major differences. First of all, when my wife and I would bring our children to a doctor's office, we would bring them to a pediatrician. My wife would go to a woman's doctor. I would go to an internal medicine specialist. If I brought my mom, who is older than I am, to a physician, I would bring her to a geriatric physician. Okay? So you go to 2, 3, 4 offices. The first difference with the community health center is that all of those offices are in effect co-located. So when you go into the community health center, you could go to the pediatrics unit, you could go to the geriatrics unit, you could go to the women's health unit, you could go to the behavioral health unit, you could go to the dental health unit, or you could go to the adult medicine, internal medicine unit. Okay? That's the first difference. So it's comprehensive medical care for the entire family. Okay? In some language, some people refer that to the concept of a medical home, that you're providing a medical home for a family. So whatever your medical or health needs are, you can go to the community health center for those medical needs. The second major difference between a doctor's office and a community health center is that it operates on a sliding fee scale. Okay? We are funded in part. It doesn't represent a big chunk of the total funding, it's only about a fifth, but we are funded in part by the federal government to provide free or reduced cost care for people who have no insurance or who are underinsured. So anyone with 200% or less of the federal poverty level in terms of income, in a family of four, that would be like $80,000. Anyone under $80,000, family of four, would be eligible for a reduced fee. And the reduced fee goes from the 200% level down to 0. So someone below 50% of the federal poverty level. And at that point, you're basically dealing with people who might just be living on Social Security, have no pension or other support, very modest income. There's no fee at all. So no matter what the services are, what the services are required, there's no fee. So, and the federal government gives us a grant to make sure that that's possible. But in addition, of course, we are happy to provide services to people who are on Medicare or on Medicaid or who have private insurance, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Anthem, whatever the case may be. So the total range of the patients runs from people who are quite well off, but they pay the full fee with whatever insurance they have, down to people who have the same medical service. They get exactly the same medical service, but pay nothing because the federal government subsidizes their care. So those are the two big differences. Some people occasionally will say, well, is this a health clinic? And the answer is no, it's not. It's a doctor's office. You have to have an appointment. It's not like you don't feel well today and you don't know who these people are and you drop in and say, hey, I'm here to have medical services. It is not a health clinic. It is a medical center. It's easy to become a patient. You can call up and say, can I come in? Can I have my paperwork done? Can I enroll as a patient? It's not hard, but you do have to go through that process, just like you couldn't walk into Dr. Smith's office and say, hey, doc, I'm not feeling well, take care of me today. He wouldn't do that. Well, neither would the health center. Okay? Once you are a patient, however, just like in a private doctor situation, you would call up and say, I'd like to schedule my annual physical, I'd like to schedule my blood test because I have dialysis or whatever other things going on. I'd like to have my children's vaccinations updated. You'd schedule an appointment. And like any other doctor's office, if you aren't feeling well that day, you'd call up and say, hey, I really don't feel well, can you see me? And of course, we reserve some appointments for people. That's called urgent care. So it's not drop-in care, it's not a clinic. But like any other doctor's office, there is urgent care available. We have a vast network of existing relationships with healthcare providers in the community. We have a wonderful relationship with Danbury Hospital. Danbury Hospital provides radiology and imaging, laboratory tests, and other services to our patients. They do it on the basis of their sliding fee scale, which works very nicely together. We also have a diversion arrangement with the emergency room. People who don't have health care, one of the things they tend to do is they wait till they're really sick and then they go to the emergency room, even though it's not technically an emergent situation. They use the emergency room, right? That's a very expensive way to provide health care. So we have an arrangement with Danbury Hospital Emergency Room that we reserve appointments on our schedule for them to refer patients to us by computer. And they basically can say to Mr. Jones, who showed up at the emergency room, here's your appointment, at the community health center, please go down and they'll enroll you as a patient and schedule your service and take care of you. So that's just one of the relationships. We have a relationship with Children's and Families Aid for some mental health services for youngsters in the community. We have relations with other healthcare providers. We have a relationship with the Danbury Hospital Dental Program, et cetera, et cetera. That's the health center. Now, the building, which you can see, and I know I'm not going to take you through all of the architectural issues. Ron does a very nice job, and he will do that. But the health center building is the building on the right in that graphic. The building has two principal uses. One is the health center, so medical offices, and the other is business offices, administrative offices. Basically, what we have at Old Sherman Turnpike, we'll be bringing down to the 4th and 3rd floors. So let me tell you what that is. That our human resources department, our financial department, our planning department, our accounts receivable, accounts payable, all those sort of activities, and our Head Start program office. The Head Start classrooms are in the schools around the city of Danbury. Hopefully we're working with the city. If they're going to ever do something with Emmanuel Lutheran, there'll be other classrooms there. But this is the program office. So we have a health manager. We have a manager who specializes in children with disabilities. We have what's called a community services manager who has a team that works with her that does family advocacy. Head Start, by the way, is not a children's program, it's a family program. So we take care, obviously we have child care facilities, but Head Start also does family advocacy. You identify, working with every family, what's the issue for that family that's holding them back? Someone didn't have their GED, so they can't get a job. Someone can't find housing that's appropriate for the family. Someone has some other issue. Perhaps a parent has an alcohol problem. They need to be in contact with MCCA. We provide services not just to the children, but to the families. Okay? So that staff, the administrative staff, the Head Start program staff, and the business office of the health center itself, obviously, like any doctor's office, we issue bills, we collect checks from insurance companies, we process paperwork, we have medical records, et cetera, et cetera. That all will take place in the office component on the 4th and 3rd floors. On the 1st and 2nd floors are the actual medical offices. On the ground floor will be, the current plan is to have the adult medicine and geriatrics on the ground floor. So it's the older people who are most likely to be physically handicapped, so they'll be able to come directly into the building and have access to their medical offices. Also on the ground floor will be a pharmacy, which is not a public pharmacy. It's a pharmacy that is, it's in a sense, it's really like a dispensary.
Congressman, excuse me, so that's the 1,870 square feet.
That's half of it.
That's retail space.
Yes, that's half of it, okay, about half of it. The dispensary, so if you're one of the advantages, and this is true of, and I'll recruit patients if I can, one of the advantages of being a patient at the community health center is you can enroll in the pharmacy program, and the discount is about 1/3 from market costs. So if you are a patient at the health center, you get a discounted pharmacy benefit, which is pretty substantial. So the pharmacy will be located in the building. The remaining part of the retail space, Mr. Chairman, is an interior, actually in the plan, it's at the corner, a coffee shop. Which primarily is intended to be there for the patients and the staff, but probably will be open to the public. And we probably won't run it ourselves. We will probably have a vendor who will run the coffee. We're not experts in coffee shops, okay, but we'll figure that out. But the purpose of the coffee shop is to provide services primarily to the patients and the staff of the building, but it's a feature of the community. So that's what goes there. Then that building is about an $8 million building. Mr. Irico said the total project was about $18 million. This is how you get there. $2 million for the bank, $18 million for the health center, $8 million for the health center, excuse me, and $8 million approximately for the 48 units of housing. So 8, 8, and 2 gets you to $18 million. The housing is intended to be 48 units, a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms. The current plan is elderly and veterans of age 55 and older. Okay? Someone earlier today was asking me about that, why not younger veterans? And the answer is that experience has shown that people younger than 55, whether they're veterans or whatever their situation is not as compatible with the elderly use, and it's better not to mix those two things together. So it's elderly and veterans 55 plus. Right? As I said, 48 units parking on site for the housing, and we'll explain the parking in more depth as well. And then finally, before I turn it over to Ron, who will go through the actual architecture, and I promise we will build an air-conditioned health center.
You notice it was a bit warm.
Let me conclude just by, from my perspective, talking about what Mayor Iroquois was referring to as the win-win-win. What does Danbury, I know what the Connecticut Institute gets from this. We get offices downtown which are convenient for our staff and for our clients. We get a new health center, which is going to provide huge benefits and services to the people who become members of the health center. What does the city get? Well, the city gets several big items. First of all, none of this property currently pays taxes. It hasn't paid taxes for 100 years, more than 100 years. This is a school site, then it was a police station, then it was a police station, after the first one, whatever. So there has not been taxes paid on this property for more than 100 years. 2 of these 3 buildings will pay taxes. The bank, I'm sorry to tell you, Gene, but the bank's going to have to pay taxes, right? And the housing is going to pay taxes as well. The health center itself will not pay taxes. That's a tax-exempt, nonprofit use, okay? So it won't pay property taxes. But here's the big bang. Somewhere between 75 and 100 employees at the health center. A third to a half of them are medical providers. And I can tell you, because I write the payroll checks, medical providers are not cheap. We're talking an average of 6 figures. Okay? Doctors, physician's assistants, advanced practice nurses, people who are independently licensed to provide health care. So 6 figures. Right? The total payroll coming from that building in a year would be about $10 million. That's a lot of money to put in downtown. That $10 million, people are in the downtown, they'll be going out, they'll be using Union Savings Bank, I know, right? They'll be going to restaurants, they'll be taking advantage of other businesses in the community, using law firms, accounting firms, taking advantage of all the things that are in downtown Danbury. So you get a tremendous infusion of economic activity in the downtown, the city of Danbury. So that's what Mayor was talking about win-win. The city wins, the bank wins, Connecticut Institute wins, but the community, and that's what we're really all about, the Connecticut Institute for Communities, the community wins. And that's why we are proud to be here tonight to support this application. And with your permission, I'll turn it over to Ron to do the architectural work.
Congressman, question for Congressman Sears?
Yes, sir. This is not really a land use question, so I hope you bear with me, but just a couple of quick things. The 1 or 2 bedroom split, I'm sure we'll see from the engineers, but is this a rent or own situation? Are these going to be homeowners or renters?
Thank you. The answer is it's going to be a mix. That's the intention. Once we have what they call technically site control, in other words, once we own the property, our next step, we will be going out to get a planning grant, which we are eligible for once we have site control. That planning grant will include a market study. And the market study will tell us, yes, architecturally it's a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units, but the market study will tell us, well, how many should be veterans? How many should be rental seniors? How many should perhaps be condominiums? Okay? So we haven't made those decisions. That decision will flow out of the market study that will be done.
And that second follow-up was, since we say seniors and senior veterans,
Yes.
that implies to me that veterans do get a preference in the housing can you just kind of tell us
How that works?
how that works?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What will happen is that, again, let me start with the market study. The market study will tell us the mix, okay? And so we're talking about 48 units. Let's say the mix comes back for discussion, say a third, okay? A third should be senior rental, a third should be senior condominium home ownership opportunities, and a third veterans. Okay? The financing for those three different types of housing are each different. In effect, we will be going to different, the Department of Veterans Affairs versus the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or the department in the state of Connecticut, the Department of Community and Economic Development versus the Department of Veterans Affairs, okay? So depending on where we settle on the market study, that'll tell us how many units, and those units then will be dedicated to veterans.
Thank you.
Okay? Very good. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Master.
Thank you.
What's the, I'm sorry, Mr. Long.
Yes, sir.
The North Street Clinic, are you relocating or is this going to be in addition to?
No, that's right. The intention is to relocate the North Street facility. The current use is about 7,000 square feet. The health center, the health office part of this is about, I forget, about 20,000 or a little less minus the retail, so 19,000. Right, so we're not only going to relocate, but we're also, the intention is to expand the services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So as we begin to walk you through our rationale for planning here, we're going to take you back again to our overall plan here, aerial here. And it occurred to us as we, again, studied this project and we looked at what was there, what was existing. The police station really was there by default. It wasn't planned, it wasn't chosen to be there. And when we really designed what we thought was really right for Main Street, what made sense there, was really exactly the wrong use, not only because it's such an internally organized project type, but this was taken above and beyond because of the past and those kinds of things. So I think we all realize it's a good move. It's going to really make a big difference. So as we look at our befores and afters in terms of what development will happen here downtown, our first looks from Center Street and looks west. And again, we talked through why we did what we did and why we think the building should look this way. We draw on what works on Main Street, the scale, the height of the buildings adjoining Main Street. If we look more closely, we start to look at what makes up facades. And there's always a rhythm of window spacing or fenestration, structure that comes down to the ground. Although the buildings are big, there's a scale that works when you are across the street looking at it as a whole, or right at its base, alongside a four-story building. You don't feel overwhelmed, you don't feel like the building mass because, again, the rhythm and the scale, what happens at the pedestrian level. So that's exactly what we strove to do with our architecture. Although the uses aren't exactly mercantile along the first floor and then another use of offices above, the building feels that way and has the proportions of that because that's what is typically on Main Street and that's what we see along Main Street. So we have this building that continues that street wall presence and works along the base, is interactive, or feels interactive with the sidewalk. We have a main entrance point on Main Street that connects to Main Street with potentially parking areas across the street and all the goings on along the sidewalks and pedestrian traffic. Along the top of the building, the uppermost story, we show in a mansard roof form. So it almost looks, it's not exactly, but it looks in general like a loft kind of space. We did that for a few reasons, but most of which is to, again, alleviate the height of the building. You take the very topmost floor and just cant it back, lets more light down to the Main Street, gives a capital to the building, so it seems to make sense. Also, along the edge, along the Main Street corner, we have this tower element. It stakes the corner, again, works as an overall planning device. We talked about a coffee shop
it really could be a very welcoming corner for not just the Kennedy Institute, but again, the public can come in as a corner. So it becomes a nice neighborhood connection to the neighborhood. The next view looks northwest from the intersection, and you see the old police station there. You see a good example of how the tower turns the corner. The same idea of alleviating the mass of the building by easing the top of the building, that first story mercantile scale, so to speak, grabs the corner. Again, you're trying to have a comfortable rhythm as people walk along the building and not feel just a solid masonry wall along that edge.
Excuse me, Ron, when you look at that image there, it almost looks like the two buildings are connected. What's the space between the?
They're not connected. I don't know the space off the top of my hand, but I'm going to take a guesstimate, and maybe it can be backed up by some my professionals here, but I think it's a 2-lane drive, so there's 24 feet, and then there's at least a 6 foot walk on either side, so add 12 to that. And then there's some green space, so 24 plus 12.
Thank you.
That was easier.
Thank you.
So they're not connected, it's just the angle of perspective. There is a less prominent corner piece on housing because of the stair, so there's a kind of visual marker of where that entrance point is from the parking area. The housing is up, elevated with parking below. And generally, you got to be careful when you do that with a building that's that many stories, because you don't want it to feel like it's on stilts, and visually it's uncomfortable. So we were careful about that and have these canopies along that lowest level. Again, it brings you right down, brings the scale down. And we have this wrought iron gate, which you'll see, wrought iron fence line between the parking area. You'll see sometimes in urban environments where parking structures don't look like parking structures. They look very nice. They add a quick presence to the street. That's what we're striving for at the base of the building. The other thing we did is we typically, the heights for parking structures are very minimal. I think it's 6 foot 8. So what happens is, even as a pedestrian, when you're walking by, you feel that the mass of the building above you, because that ceiling height is so low, you see the structure, you see the sprinkler piping. We kept that up a little higher. It's instead of 6 foot 8, we have 8 feet plus the depth of the structure. So it's actually 11 feet to the first floor. So, we've been careful about not letting those things ruin the aesthetic of the building. Otherwise, it's those kinds of details that can make the project less successful. As we talk about the street wall and the tower and why we made some of the moves we did, we wanted to stop for a minute and explain this intersection. Main Street works very well, and it has parts of it that are more or less successful. But this one area, at least on the police station side, needed work. On the St. Peter side, it actually works very well, and there's a strong presence there between the space in front of St. Peter's, the steeple, the presence that steeple has as it space the corner. And then what happens when Main Street separates and Elmwood Park deals with so beautifully. At that same node, Center Street and Ballard Street connected from really what is an offset 4-way intersection. So as we studied this, we realized the addition of another tower could either compete with the one that's there, or in a way complement each other and further define that node between the park and the two towers and the Main Street merges into two. So with that thinking, and as an example of how the church works so well, you're coming down either as a in the car or as a pedestrian, the steeple marks that location and is almost centered on the street, and works very well. So we didn't want to block that. We didn't, it's very picturesque. And instead, we strove to frame that view. So you see the housing on the left, that's what you feel is pedestrian. There's the canopies along the parking area that I mentioned before, the wrought iron rail. So again, there's a sense of rhythm, there's a sense of scale. The canopies help to alleviate the massive building. And then there's also activity because of potential balconies and areas for people to look out onto the site. Stay a little longer there. The other thing, as you look down the structure, on the left of the structure, the new tower really helps frame the view of the steeple that's there already. So with that same thinking, when you look down Center Street, and the steeple is doing the framing now, and is setting up what is the new focal point along that street, which is the tower that you can get to the building. So they both kind of work and balance each other, and instead of competing, complement each other. And in the same way as St. Peter's sets up that view down about the street, we're going to do it on Center as well. And then, of course, along Main Street, it would make a lot of sense because you have the two towers and the entrance to Elmwood Park and Royal Splits Park and all those things. A quick discussion about with our relations. We have handouts and we will be submitting those. They're a little easier to read than they are here on the monitors, but essentially we have an elevation from Bowden, and a long Bowden that shows that's in the bottom of the slide, the bottom of the monitor, excuse me. On the right-hand side is the entrance to the building, on the left-hand side is the housing. There is a gateway or arch that I know there's been some discussion about, some questions about. The thought is, in many ways, it will feel like the gateway or entrance to Elmwood, which is basically a metal sign that's wrought iron and see-through in some ways because of the grade on it. This will be the same thing, much bigger scale. Instead of one column pulling each side of this signage, we'll have a cluster of columns that come up. But it'll still feel like it will have signage above, and it is 20 feet high at the spring point of the arch. It's kind of a gentle arch along the gateway. The upper image in the upper right-hand corner is an elevation of the Connecticut Institute building facing the parking lot, and I believe that direction is east, or west, excuse me. And then the opposite side of the housing facing the parking area on the left-hand side. And again, in general, the materials are listed, but we're looking at some kind of embossed shingle for the roofing. We said synthetic slate, architectural slate, maybe architectural shingles, but something that has a relief to it. Brick, some metal panels, some stone-like material, whether it's precast or some kind of stone material. I'll explain where we're pulling our cues from in a minute there.
So I would be curious as to whether or not you'd be using some of the same brickwork and accents that you'd be using across the street with the bank, and then obviously keep that consistency as well.
The skin of both of those projects we're talking about is under development. It's not as far along. But per my discussion earlier in the presentation, some of the reasons that we chose the architecture for Union Savings, which had to do with the brand and the timelessness, the Danbury character, the traditional, all those things will be embodied in the new project. It may not be a literal, direct 100% relationship. It's not, it's not going to be when we have one story building, now we have the same building, but 4 stories. But the intent is the character and quality of the character will be equal. We wanted to talk about along that same exact topic, the vocabulary of what the new buildings will be, both the Connecticut Institute building and the housing, and how we will arrive there, and how what we will draw our cues from. The first is really exactly what's happening in ESB, what happens at the ground plane, and when Jane comes up and talks, which will be in a few minutes, she'll give you a little more detail. But again, it will be the same character, the same design from a landscape perspective as what's happening in Elmwood. The other thing we did, along with the massing of the building, and I kind of walked you through why it's the way it is look at more specific details in Danbury and pull our cues from there. For example, the rectory building, along with others along Main Street, has these tower elements that are very successful, and hence the notion of our tower on the corner. There's also steeples and towers along Main Street. The closest, most symbolic one, iconic one, is the steeple across the street at St. Peter's. And again, we have a vertical element, and we understand why. But also, farther down the street, there are these traditional buildings of varying styles. Some of them are merging styles. The old library has some Gothic details, even though it's still a brick building. So the notion of these engaged or semi-engaged columns that are really part of the wall that frame the entrance, we're thinking of doing a very similar thing at the main entrances. You can see that red line that goes to the entrance. Community Institute building, excuse me. And then there are areas in town where we have this patina copper. And it's actually, you see it more in the winter season because all the leaves are off the trees. And you look down Main Street, you see it in a couple different places. The closest of which is at St. Peter's. It's beautiful, it's historic, it's
Savings Bank. I just wanted to state that we are here clearly to comply with the regulations as required, and that's clearly what we're representing, that we're doing. I'll give you an example though. The Bishop Curtis Homes, which is 44 units of senior housing, has, I believe, 13 permits for parking. So not all, in reality, what functions in practicality, and in reality is far different than what perhaps the regulations, require within our CBD zone, for development such as this. So we've tried to ensure that through the lease agreement between Civic and St. Peter, between the lease agreement between Civic and USB, that we were able to meet out not only the spirit but the intent of the regulations and ensure that there was more than sufficient parking on site to be able to meet the shared needs of all participants, within the neighborhood.
Appreciate that, thank you. Jane, would you like to continue?
Yes, and I'm going to get into the details of the St. Peter's parking, but first I want to just finish up with the site plan for the Connecticut Institute.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure there were no further questions on what we just talked about. Please feel free.
Like I said, I'm going to just finish up a little bit with the site plan for the Connecticut Institute, then I'm going to just discuss the St. Peter's parking area. And we're also happy to see our traffic engineer has been able to get here, so I don't have to do the traffic engineering presentation.
Let's let her off the hook.
So, yeah, it's one of those things. It's one of those things where sometimes you just have two hearings on the same night. So, but anyway, the loading space, we only need one for the retail use. As per section 8.c.5, and the other uses do not require, but we are creating a residential moving area. And have my right there. Okay, it doesn't work on the screen, but right there. Like I said to Jennifer, I'm an old-fashioned girl on paper.
Is there a dumpster on that plan?
There are dumpster recycling areas. One here for the Connecticut Institute building and one here for the house.
if you're gonna have regular dumpsters, you know, the state law, you're gonna require light recyclable containers. It's not a zoning requirement, but I'm just giving you a heads up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Allen.
I verified on the site plan there are notations for the dumpsters. That includes the recycling area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, the site plan actually states that.
Yes,
And
it
it's
does.
not just me saying it here. Okay. So, improvements to St. Peter's parking area. We just wanted to give a collection of existing pictures that are up on the screen of the restaurant lounge area that's kind of in the middle of the parking area. And then also some of the edges. Again, this is a site that is in need of improvement, and we're really pleased again that we have clients that want to extend the beauty of Elmwood Park into this area too. So there's a commitment to improve the St. Peter's parking lot, which is in 3 sections, with our parking, some overflow parking, and some parking specifically for the church on a daily basis. So this is going to include streetscape improvements, the wonderful treatments that the city invested on Center Street and also in front of St. Peter's Church are going to extend into the parking area. We're going to also have street trees and lighting, decorative lighting similar. And so that area will also have an uplift and an improvement visually, and another improvement aesthetically, which has been proven, aesthetics have been proven, to improve quality of life, reduce crime, etc. And we have shown that with Elmwood Park, and we've shown that with Danbury Library Plaza, we've shown that in other projects we've done on Main Street, so we intend to show that here. I do want to just say that this has been reviewed by building with positive report, fire marshal with a positive report, engineering. I don't think I got that report, but you have it. Traffic engineer, traffic authority with a positive report, planning and zoning with a positive report. I think it's really important to note that these improvements are to not only the police station site, as I call it, but to 3 major sites that are, I was on the Main Street Renaissance Committee. These were sites that were identified in need of improvement as part of that report. These are going to be dramatic improvements to this area of Main Street. That Elmwood Park will now be the center of these incredibly beautiful buildings, incredibly beautiful streetscapes, and I think you'll find that this will improve the gateway to South Main Street. At this point, I'd like to turn the mic over to Chris Leonard to discuss the lease agreements for the parking, so you fully understand those, and then our traffic engineer will be discussing his traffic.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. A question for staff. In the staff report that we have in front of us, it says the fire marshal had not presented a report. Have they since done so?
Mr. Chairman, we don't have an actual written report from the fire marshal. We were awaiting to know the height of the arch to make sure the fire trucks could get through that. I received that number yesterday from the architect, conveyed that to Fire Marshal Johnson. We are awaiting the architecturals, which we have now. I'll be able to transmit that to the fire marshal, and he'll grant us the official letter based off of conversations. He's okay with the height. We're just waiting for final plans.
I would be, as a follow-up, I'd be interested if the fire marshal had any concerns about turn radius on the site or access to existing hydrants, and also if there are sprinklers in the apartment building. Mr. Rice.
Related to that, also, if there's any concerns about only one entrance and exit, and a major building fire.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Madam Chair.
I did speak to Fire Marshal Johnson about that, and he mentioned that they would not likely commit a ladder truck. They have adequate space along Main Street and Boughton Street if need be. They would commit one of the normal-sized fire trucks in there. they would not turn around, they would back out. They wouldn't actually make that turn, they would just go straight in, parallel with the center island to turn through for the medical, and then they would back out. With respect to sprinklers, that I believe is being discussed between the fire marshal and the engineering department. And the engineering department has also requested that a hydrant be replaced out at the corner. So that's all part of the engineering review as well, that will be resolved.
Thank you, Ms. Senator. Ms. Diaz, anything else?
Just to follow up on that, the concern with the single interest was less about the fire trucks, more about the safety of the residents, the ability to exit the premises while we got emergency vehicles coming in, the only way. I'm sure there's rear exits in the building or something, but I just like to address that.
Yeah, for the record, Chris Leonard, attorney for the applicant, I just got a message from my comrades here that all buildings are sprinkled for the record. I'm here for just a few words, and that is we submitted tonight to Jennifer for submission into the record copies of the leases for the shared parking arrangement that you just heard about from Jane with Union Savings Bank and St. Peter's Church. Those leases go through, and if you look at the terms, conform with the time arrangement that you just heard her go through. The St. Peter's lease has been approved by the St. Peter's Church Council. That is their mechanism for approving the lease. Church governance procedures require any contract involving real estate, in this case a lease which involves real estate, has to go to the regional diocese for the bishop is the person that has to actually sign the lease. So it's been sent down to Bridgeport for that purpose. There's a letter from attorney Tallarico, which is counsel to the St. Peter's Church, that I also submitted, and I request go into the record, which confirms the lease terms have been accepted by the church and that it's just going down for signature. And obviously when that signature comes back, we will submit it to Jennifer for the planning department. That's all I had. I'd like to introduce Mike Mizuko, who's going to, civil engineer, is going to go into drainage. And
So much, I just interrupt you, excuse myself for a second, Mr. Yash, you have a question from Mr. Leonard?
On the leases
Yes.
for the parking?
Yeah.
In those negotiated lease arrangements, are any residents of the apartment buildings in senior housing going to be required to get out and move their vehicles at some time during the day or because of the day of the week, because of the nature of these lease arrangements? Or once you're home, can you stay where you are?
Yeah, I can say no, and I can ask Jean Eriquez, who is with the Savings Bank, who will represent, I think that Union Savings Bank is not going to require any movement in the middle of the night or at odd hours for the parking to be utilized for the housing right across the street.
That's correct.
What about during the day? Anytime. Some people are, night workers, not day sleepers, and just once you're in your house and you park in whatever is a legitimate residential parking, are you going to have to move it this month if you don't want to?
Yeah, I don't believe so.
Saturday, no, to be fair.
I don't want to put words in Jim's mouth.
No, I think we have to be candid and fair. The answer is, I can't get by.
Thank you. Stand up, Michael. Thank you.
Yes, if a resident did park at St. Peter's, okay, we don't ever anticipate that being necessary, but if they did, okay, or if we had a staff member who was parked at St. Peter's, or I was in the office on Saturday at 4 o'clock, as I have been known to do, at 4 o'clock, I would have to move my car. And I would move my car from St. Peter's to either the site or to Union Savings Bank. But with that exception, I don't see any other issue.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Yash?
I'll save it for the comment section.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leonard.
Mike Mizuko.
Thank you. For the record, Mike Mizuko, professional engineer. My office is in Danbury.
I'm just gonna go to the board again. Our area mapping consists of the 500 foot around the site, shows the topography, driveways, buildings, roads, etc. And again, the firm flood insurance rate map, depicting the site in the middle there, that shows that we're not in a flood zone. Again, we don't have any regulated activities with regard to EIC, no wetlands on the property. The existing site consists of the police station, which is on the Main Street side. The rear portion of that property is the parking area. Most of the site is currently improved and impervious via the parking lot of the building. The sole, actually, I retract that, but there is a entrance off of Boughton. Currently, there is access to the westerly, there's like westerly drive-through. There is some access there that will not be used. There is utilities in Boughton, sewer, water, gas. There are existing connections for drainage out to Main Street, similar to the site across the street. And the topography of the site is, once you get into the rear of the building and the parking area in the back is relatively flat. There is some grade change near the corner of Main and Mountain. And what we're trying to do is to, if you can see in the architectural, is keep the building down as far as we can to have a nice appeal from Main Street. And in doing so, we did have to drop quite a bit of the grade on the site. But currently, the drainage, the existing drainage comes in off of the corner of Main and Boughton. It runs parallel to Boughton Street to the entrance to the site. There's an existing catch basin, and then it comes up to the site, and then there's a single catch basin in a depressed area, sort of in the rear, in the middle of the parking. And currently, from Boughton Street, you would be driving up in grade, because the elevation rises up, and it gets to sort of a high point and drops back down to the catch basin. So you're driving up and then slightly coming back down. That will change. I'm just going to look at the proposed site utilities plan. So the drainage patterns are 80%, maybe even more, go to the existing drainage system. And that's via the two catch basins. Plus there's a connection from the existing building, which I assume is roof drainage. So we evaluated the site drainage going to the existing drainage system and whatever's running, bypassing. And so there was basically two areas, one going to the drainage system and then the bypass. Total existing flow off of the site is let's say 7.2 CFS. When we were evaluating the site drainage, we noticed that there was only a 12-inch pipe going from the manhole that's in front of, on the Boughton Street side, in front of the old police station, out to Main Street. So we wanted to try to maintain that flow. In evaluating that, we realized that pipe was undersized for the existing flow that were draining through that catch basin out to Main Street. So that was a design criteria for us to try to maintain at least the design capacity of the pipe. What we did was, as I mentioned before, the site, we had to lower the site quite a bit to make it not so steep in front along Main Street. And if you look at the site plan, we do have the corner of Main and Mountain, there's slightly raised up just to get the grade up a little bit to make the elevations work in the rear of the lot. So what we did was instead of the entrance coming in, the grade going up, it now just comes up to the back of the sidewalk. It actually pitches down It'll raise back up slightly. There's just a lot of dips and low points throughout the site. So you would start coming down. We hit a catch basin, low point, come up again, down, catch basin. The split between these two rows of parking represents a high point. Flow to that catch basin to the east. Again, if you travel north, we reach another high point. Then this area adjacent to the loading area, the dumpster drains to that catch basin there. And then everything else west of the handicap spaces just pitches to the central catch basin. And that all is tied into I think that we ended up with 200 feet of galleries for detention. And so what we did was and also roof drainage, everything comes into the detention system. So we routed all of that through the detention system, and then we ended up tying back into the existing drainage system that went out to Main Street. So when we looked at the flows, existing conditions, 7.2 CFS. The existing pipe had a capacity of 3.63 CFS. So, which was okay. We knew we had to provide quite a bit of detention. So when we routed everything through, we ended up with a flow out of the detention was 3.55 CFS, which was below our 3.63. But with the development of the site, now we have probably 95% of it draining to the detention system. All told, we ended up with total out was 4.01 CFS. So 7.18 to 4. And the 4 consists of the 3.5 going out to Main Street and the residual that you have, in front of me, along Main Street that we just can't capture via through the drainage system. So that represents about a 44% reduction in the flow off of the site, pre and post conditions. Utilities, there were some existing connections, which we're going to try to use them as much as we can, but we do have separate two new buildings. So we'll have separate connections, new connections for that. There is a hydrant on the corner of Main and Bound, which Jennifer had mentioned that in the engineering report, requested that we provide a new one.
Excuse me, the electric utilities, is that mostly underground? Or
That will be underground.
Any poles on the street that have to be moved or anything to that effect?
No, there's a pole across the street. We're proposing to just come in. That's the way it is right now for the police station. So we'll just be modifying the routes, but they'll be underground. We will have new connections for sewer, water, and there is another hydrant. It's a little hard to read, but it's just pretty much on the westerly side of my sheet. So it's probably about a little over 100 feet from the site.
Was that the hydrant that Ms. Eminger referenced before?
No, that was the one on the corner of Main and Bound.
Okay, thank you.
So there's another one just to the west of the site, about 110 feet or so. And as Chris Leonard had mentioned, both buildings will be fully sprinklered. And the engineering letter from the engineering department, a few things on there that we have to address, and one of them that we do have to take a look at and evaluate a little further is the sewer allocation use. So we're trying to work with the utilities department now to try to get that resolved.